We got a red dot, folks. Welcome back to Akron's hottest and fastest growing show, 3 Throw to Go. I'm your host, Hank Forrester, coming to you live from inside Compass Coffee, friends of Hoppin' the Bean. We've been here many times over the last couple of years, so here we are again, and I get a chance to sit down with folks from the actual Census Bureau, okay? We've got Susan, we've got Curtis, and we've got Kent. Now, if you recognize Curtis, he also works here above Compass Coffee in the Well program, which he's got all kinds of long titles, and I'll let him tell you that if he wants to, all right? But in the meantime, I just want to say hi, and what we're going to do right now, I had mentioned we'd be sitting down today, and we're going to get a chance to talk with these folks and answer some of your questions about the upcoming census. Okay, so as those questions or comments come in, I'll try and read them. That's why I'm sitting off to the side here. But right now, I'd like to say hi to our little panel. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi there.
All right. So let's just start with question one. What is the census?
Thanks for asking. We're happy to be here because the momentum is strong. The census, the 2020 decennial census, starts tomorrow.
Okay.
So households across the country will begin to receive their invitation to respond.
It starts tomorrow?
March 12th through March 20th.
How about our timing?
All right. Be on the lookout for your invitation to respond, and all of you that are watching.
Okay.
Because we want you to take part in the nation's largest peacetime operation, and that is your 2020 decennial census.
Okay.
What's really neat is we've been conducting a census, which is a household and population count, since 1790. It's a heck of a long time.
I had a chance to see the first census counting machine. It's located out in California somewhere. It wasn't Apple, but it was one of the tech museums. We happened to be there for a conference. This was about a year or two ago. And we went in, and it was a punch card like machine that they counted. It was the first machine that ever counted the census. And so, you know, I'm aware of how long they've been doing it and just how technical it is, okay? Now, if I remember in the past, 10 years ago, so I'm trying to remember, I've been through 3 of them now, okay, as a homeowner. And I remember the card came and it was about like that big. Right. Is that right? Is it?
Gosh, you know,
I'm saying the mailer. So for people to look for the mailer, it's like an oblong mailer. Is that right?
In the past, not right now.
Not right
we'll
now.
talk about
Okay.
that.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. So decennial, every 10 years. You're absolutely right. So we are ready for folks to respond. And what's important to note is this is a constitutional mandate.
Okay.
It's not Democrat, Republican, or Independent. It's nonpartisan.
Okay.
So folks, you do not have to worry about any political affiliation. This is your opportunity to be counted and to uphold your civic obligation and our United States Constitution. So it's really, really important that everybody respond. And to your point of, is it going to be this big oblong piece of paper coming in the mail? This invitation that's going to start landing in mailboxes beginning tomorrow will be an invitation. It will be a letter to go online or respond by phone.
Okay.
And the neat thing is, and what's different and exciting for this census, is online and by phone, available in 12 languages plus English.
Okay.
There's an additional 59 languages plus Braille and American Sign Language guidance for folks. So we are really working to remove those barriers of communication so that everybody has the opportunity to be counted.
Okay.
Let's say that your household doesn't respond.
Okay.
You receive your invitation to respond, but a week goes by and you're not ready to yet, or you just have forgotten. A postcard reminder comes in the mail. Hey, don't forget, census time is here.
Okay.
Let's say your household still doesn't respond. Hey, another postcard reminder comes in the mail. Fill out your census.
So what's the time frame right there?
Now we're into the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay, because it is a staggered mailing with that invitation to respond. So again, once the household hasn't responded, then the third touch point will be that traditional paper form, but it's not a big, long, cumbersome piece of mail. It's a paper questionnaire that comes to the household.
Okay.
And it's the same questions as if one were responding online or by phone.
Okay.
Now we're into the early part of April. And let's say, yet again, household has not responded. That's when a census taker or an enumerator will visit only the households that have not responded.
Gotcha, okay.
So for folks that have a concern, and it may have been in censuses past, where an enumerator came to the household, there is an opportunity now to respond on your time in the way that is most convenient for you. Online, by phone, mail your response back, or if you prefer that face-to-face interview with an enumerator, just wait for them to come to your household.
Okay, okay. Got anything, Ken?
No, absolutely. Susan is right, and definitely for the Akron community and Summit County, I'm the local representative for this county for the U.S. Census Bureau. So, you know, the bottom line is that you being counted means that that's at least $675 billion each year that goes to communities, schools, service programs, school lunches, roads, school, you know, things like that. So it's important that everybody gets counted in their home and at the right place at the right time, and especially for those in the community, especially your children, you make sure they get counted on the census forms, and even non-citizens and those who are new to the country needs to be aware to get counted. So that's what I'm working to work with organizations and grassroots communities who work with some of those populations to make sure that they let those communities know that they need to fill out the census form as soon as they get that form or that letter in the mail, or you know, do it online and by phone. And so that's what I'm also working with Curtis here at the well, and also the Akron Summit County Complete Count Committee, which is the committee doing a lot of the outreach and task force in communicating census information to the communities. So that's what Curtis is. He's one of the members of that Complete Count Committee.
So Curtis, that's more on the local level, right? And having that Akron voice. Okay, so tell us about that role, and then explain to me, this is like you said that this is a location. How does that work? Explain that to us.
So I know the census has identified locations over the past 4 or 5 months. That would be centers of awareness.
Okay.
But again, there are also exists a county initiative. So that's the Complete Count Committee led by Executive Eileen Shapiro. In that, there exists a advisory committee with some of the most prominent influencers in the greater Akron area and the county, and there are 13 subcommittees. I have been fortunate enough to lead the Minority Outreach subcommittee, and it's a collection of churches, fraternities, sororities, nonprofit organizations, and yeah, our responsibility is pretty self-explanatory. Because we know there were certain communities unaccounted for, no fault of their own. That's why we're doing all this myth busting, dismantling the stigmas around about the census. I believe it was something like 3.8 in the African American community, 3.8 million, 3.7 in the Latino community, and then children of all ages often go unaccounted for. So just spreading the awareness that there are no consequences, at least bad consequences, to completing the census. This all dictates billions and billions of dollars, and we want to play our role in that, so those dollars go in the right direction. So, yep. So
a lot of funding allocation occurs because of this, and that's really one of the main points to drive home, folks. That it's critically important for government funding for different programs, i.e., parks.
You know, we'll start at the top. When we say $675 billion, that's a billion with a B, $1 billion, that is for our infrastructures, our roads, our bridges, our hospitals, our schools, our libraries, our safety services. So fire, police, EMS. Communities can only plan appropriately based on an accurate count of how many people live in an area.
Sure.
So I think we can say we sleep well at night knowing that our communities have the proper resources available for all of us for those safety services, and that our hospitals can thrive in our schools. But let's talk about that community impact as well, such as what you're doing at the well and the programs within schools, our national school lunch program, the free and reduced lunch, the breakfast, WIC, Head Start, Medicaid, Meals on Wheels. And you know, we have University of Akron right here down the street. If anybody's ever gone to college and taken advantage of any federal student aid, that's your census data at work. You know, so none of us have gone untouched by census data and what that impact is. We talk about subsidized housing or public transportation. The list goes on and on.
Okay.
So it's very, very important that everybody be counted. And as Curtis was saying, children under the age of 5, historically, nationwide, have been one of the most undercounted populations. Over 1 million children went uncounted in 2010.
Unfortunately, it affects them kind of the most because it doesn't happen. It's only 10 years.
10 years.
They're 10 or 11 or up to 15 years old,
Absolutely.
using those resources that they haven't been allocated.
Right.
So here's a silly question, okay? What if someone just outright refuses to be counted?
You know, we're really hoping that with this awareness that folks understand the importance of being counted. And as Curtis also mentioned about the Complete Count Committee, you know, in 2010 we came out of the census saying, you know, we don't need more paper and mailboxes. We need more trusted voices in our communities.
Okay.
We need more Kent. We need more Susan. There are 1,600 of us across the country that have began working with our Complete Count committees, local people doing local work, because we know the needs of our community. We want to let folks know how, in particular, it impacts the programs and services. So even when we look at Northeastern Ohio and the counties that surrounding this area, they're all different in who they serve and the programs that they serve. And I think that's why, you know, it's so important we get the message out that it is important for folks to complete their census, and there's everything to lose if you don't.
Okay.
It's very safe. All responses are protected by law.
Yep.
Okay.
We cannot share. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Just waiting to jump in.
I'm excited. She's speaking the truth. That's it.
You can tell we're passionate about what we do.
Surely. And so we talk about increasing our capacity around about awareness. I'm fortunate enough to be a part of Akron Urban League Young Professionals. It's a voluntary auxiliary of our local Akron Urban League. Also the NAACP, which are very rooted organizations here in the city of Akron. And it's like, what won't we do when the census come around? Well, take it. So what do we need to do? How do we increase awareness, increase intelligence and competency around about this matter, and how are we touching the people? So we'll go as far as canvassing, you know, at local retailers where we know the community that we're hoping comes out and does the census exist. So I'm really excited about what they already empowered groups like mine to do.
How long does it take to do online?
You know, it varies from person to person, and depending on how many folks you are responding about within your household. So it's not too labor intensive. I will tell you the questions are very simple, and we encourage folks to visit 2020census.gov and preview the invitation and the sample census form, because I'll tell you what, there are unscrupulous people out there. We want folks to respond to the census and not some fraudulent piece of mail that may be coming in their mailbox or going on a fraudulent website. So become familiar with what's landing in the mailbox and when.
Yeah.
And let me add that, you know, the safety of your responses, I started to mention that all responses are protected by law.
Okay.
And we at the Census Bureau at any level cannot share any personal identifying information. We're a statistical reporting agency only.
Okay.
Which means that none of your personal information is shared, not with law enforcement, not with ICE, not with the FBI, not with Children's Services, Child Support, not with any local zoning or housing authorities. We're just not allowed.
Okay.
Nor are our census workers trained to act in that capacity.
Okay.
So they're there to do one thing, and that's collect responses.
So after this video, a few hundred people have watched it live, and that'll turn to a few thousand before the day's over. I'll, in the comments below, I'll go and I'll find the link, and I'll share that link for everybody.
That would be wonderful.
So because I think just me, I want to know what the darn thing looks like that's coming to me, because our tendency with mail is, you get most of it's junk mail, and if I'm looking for that piece of paper, or all right. So let me ask you this then: when you get the piece of paper, is there like a code that you enter that's your like user code or something?
Great question. It's called a Census ID. That invitation will have the URL for folks to go online, as well as their Census ID, and that's attached to the household. So once a household responds, you come off the master address file, and we won't bother you again for another 10 years.
Okay. I'm glad I asked that, because otherwise people would just try and go online and just go do it, right? And so they got to have their little ID.
Yeah.
So.
And if someone has lost or forgotten or can't find or didn't receive one, well, there is online, there's a button that you can click and say, or you can.
Is there a little chat person? Do they have a chat set up?
I'm not sure about a chat bot.
Like Amazon, like Hey, I need Purell.
I know we have a lot of resources available, that's for sure.
Okay.
But we really want to stress that it is safe and it is secure.
Okay.
And some of the things that folks ought to be aware of when responding online or by phone, first I'll address that is, we'll never ask you to download any software. No app needs to go on your phone. You won't be asked for any money.
So that's scammer info, okay? Scammer info. They're not going to ask you for an app. They're not going to ask you to download software, and they're not going to ask you to pay to do the census, all right? So I'm sure there's going to be 30 or 40 scam things that the robocalls that you're going to get every day. Hey, this is the census call. No, they're not going to do that, all right?
Yes, and we will not call for the decennial census. The respondent needs to initiate that phone call.
Okay.
As well, when you go online to view the sample questionnaire, know that you cannot print out a questionnaire and mail it back in.
Okay.
The only thing you can mail back in is if you receive the form in the mail. We won't ask for bank account, credit card information. We will not ask for your political or religious affiliation. We're not asking for income. So it's really, really important that folks be aware of this. And if an enumerator comes to the household, know that they're not crossing the threshold.
Okay.
Okay, they're not coming in the house. Don't ask them to come in. They won't. They can't.
Dogs.
Nor are they. Or cats. I have a vicious cat. They won't walk around the house, and they will not ask you about anyone other than folks living or staying in your home.
Will they need a badge or something?
Great question, and yes, and online at 2020census.gov, you can click and find out what should I be looking for when a census worker comes to my house. They have a badge that is not easily duplicated. It's not like when we've heard stories about somebody coming to the door with a business card. It's not like that. Their badge has a watermark, their photo, an expiration date, and their name. They have identifying equipment from the device that they're holding, as well as if they're carrying a crossbody bag. It has a Census Bureau logo on it.
Okay.
As well, sheriff and police across the country have been made aware of that identification that a Census Bureau would have. But if your household has already responded, nobody should be at your door.
Okay. And then social security numbers, are they used?
No, not at all.
They don't use social security numbers for the census. Do you hear me? Scammer people, all right? Just so everybody knows, they will not ask for your social security number.
And we won't email you either.
Won't email you either. Or offer you money from Nigeria. Okay?
That's not us.
All right.
That's not us.
What have we forgotten? Anything?
Well, and I think, we still have jobs.
Yeah, we still have quite a few jobs left to fill.
Oh, there's still jobs to fill.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I saw that you had the job fair. It was like March 6th or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're talking Summit County?
Yeah, in Summit County, we're still hiring quite a few people to work. The deadline is, I believe now, it's been extended to April, end of April.
Because the enumerators will hit the streets like middle of April, you think?
Yeah, it depends. And, keep in mind, there's various phases to census.
Okay.
So we have, of course, our census takers, which will visit households, but there's also group quarter counts, our dormitories, right, need to be counted. So we need to work with those administrators of whether it's a dorm or a hospital, a jail, a residential treatment facility, long-term care facility.
How does that work? Okay, so kids here from Florida, why they would go to Akron U from Florida, I don't know, but they're up because Akron U is great. University of Akron is great, right? So point being, they're here from all over the country, or maybe even all over the world, and do they get counted like as an Akron resident?
So here's the line in the sand. Where are you on April 1st?
Okay.
April 1st, 2020 is Census Day.
Got it.
So typically, a student at college is living at the university on April 1st and most of the time, but on April 1st.
Because they'll have P.O. boxes too.
Right, and we don't mail to a P.O. box.
Okay.
So there's an operation for that as well. There's a phase for residents that have a P.O. box and how we treat that. And some of those areas, and we can share the link with you, it's publicly available, that you can see what area, and it's usually by township, that will receive the paper form on the first mailing, because we don't mail to a P.O. box. But back to those college students. So I always think of this as well, because 10 years ago I also had a child in college, and I thought, oh my goodness, did I count her once? Did I not count her? Was she counted twice? And we said we want to make sure people are counted once and only once and in the right place. So she was away at school. She needed to have been counted at college, not under my household, because she wasn't living as a visitor first in my household. So regardless of dependency status or anything like that. And we also run into that question with children who split time between two homes, two family homes, whether that's mom and dad, or perhaps staying with other family members.
I guess the question would be, specifically, the one I would ask would be, does it matter what county they're in?
Well,
like let's say that one family lives in Akron and the other's in Canton. Now you're talking Summit County versus Stark.
Where does the child
Live
stay most
April.
of the time, or on April 1st?
On April 1st.
Right.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's
So
crazy.
there's a lot of little nuances to take into consideration.
Okay.
But again, that's why we have complete count committees in our communities. That's why we have trusted voices to speak to our friends and our family and our neighbors. And when you're sitting at your son or daughter's extracurricular activity and chatting with other parents, just knowing the facts is so helpful.
Do you have any kind of cutesy like logo or limerick or anything? Like stand up and be counted?
Everybody counts.
Everybody counts?
Yeah,
Everybody counts.
very simple.
Everybody counts.
And shape your future. And
Right.
this truly is an opportunity to shape not only your future and my future of the next 10 years, but the next generation as well.
So for all of you that have been complaining about infrastructure in Akron, bridges, potholes, roads, and everything construction and everything that we keep hearing about, okay? This is your chance. Be counted, okay? And that way, money can be allocated to the different funding that's available for all the programs that take care of the Summit County infrastructure. All right? Did I forget anything?
And you know what? That's a great segue into the money doesn't follow the need. The money follows the count.
Okay.
So be counted, Summit County. We need you to be counted.
Is that it? Did I forget anything?
You
All
got
right.
Let's close with this.
Yeah.
2020census.gov, or if you're looking for a job, 2020census.gov/jobs.
Okay.
They're paying how much per hour?
In this area, $19.50.
Yeah, $19.50 an hour.
Part-time.
Part-time.
Flexible.
As the spring is springing, and you get to walk around your lovely Akron
Beautiful,
neighborhoods.
warm weather,
Warm weather.
mileage reimbursement.
Did I
paid
just sell
training,
that?
but very flexible, and that's great for folks who are looking for a few hours or up to 40 hours per week, and the work can last through the end of July. That's when census ends.
Sounds great. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Obviously, it's important. We want to share this information with you. Now, we know that there is a ton going on in Ohio. There's a ton going on in Akron. And there's a ton going on in America right now with all the breaking news that we've been sharing over the last 2 days. That cycle is probably going to continue. We're going to share that information with you as it becomes available. My next actual broadcast isn't for a few days. Dion's going to be live with the Hip Hop Digest. So look for a few episodes coming up, which he's a University of Akron student that's now been moved to online learning. So he's going to be covering different things abroad. He's got more free time on his hands now. He could be at different places. So if you've got a music event coming up and it's still on, just let him know, and he'll be happy to pop over to that. As far as my programming, I don't have anything major coming up for the next few days, but I'm probably going to be out and about. There's a bunch of maple festivals that are currently still taking place throughout Northeast Ohio, and that is this weekend. So look for the maple festivals in and around town. You'll see them in the Brunswick area, in the Medina area, and so on and so forth. Until then, I don't know where I'm going, but there ain't no sense of being late. Everybody out there, say goodnight, Shirley.